You did it all. They can't find you. You could say everything. Okay, Juwanza Starling did not practice. Deion Bailey was very limited. George Farmer did not practice. Mark Tyler did not practice. And Rhett Ellison was limited. So obviously some very critical players. We hope that they'll all be back. And if not, we need guys to step up, which in general we do with being this time of the year where you're banged up and including the suspension. So we're going to need some players to really step up and fill in those spots on offense and defense, and then also what that trickles down to special teams.
We may be looking at 2 new safeties to start this game?
Yeah, very easily. That could be the case with Juwanza having not practiced today, and obviously the league deciding TJ can't play.
I know you didn't list him, but has Robert been 100% the whole season?
Really has not. He's flashed at times early in the year, but still, for whatever reason, that ankle just won't get right. And sometimes some days it's really bad, as you guys can see out here, and then some days, it just hampers him a little bit. So unfortunately, he just can't get back.
What does it say about his potential that he's, the leading receiver in the nation or close to it, and has had an ankle problem the whole year?
I think it just says who he is. That he's that special, that can be injured and be that tough to have those type of numbers, but also prepare enough to be able to line up in all those spots that he does. And I think even as you look at his gigantic game versus Arizona, watch his long 80-yard catch there early in the game. You can still see a limp in the sprint there. That's not the same stride that you saw in Stanford the year before on his long play.
Who would be that other safety if he didn't
Marshall.
Yeah, Drew will start, and then the other safety would be Marshall Jones.
Regarding Robert's drop at the beginning, early in that game, were you kind of shocked to see that, since it almost never happens with him?
Yeah, like I've said before, we take it for granted, how rare that is. I think it was the second of the year. And I think that probably had a lot to do with just that drop, really, and some misalignments, even the drop on special teams too. And I just think that as good as he is, if you miss that much practice, you're just going to be a little bit out of rhythm. And that's a play like we talk about he makes all the time. That play was specifically designed, for that coverage on that corner, knowing that would be our matchup of the day, going left over there on 27. And unfortunately, he didn't make it. And like you said, we're just used to him making those plays.
Both Drew and Marshall are older guys, and they've kind of been waiting their turn to kind of have this opportunity. Can you just talk about that and their progression?
Yeah, they're good stories when things like this happen, when guys that have played a bunch before, get another shot. And, we've had guys really step up in those situations, like a year ago when Chris Gallipo, came in a backup role and started playing better actually a year ago. And so hopefully this will be one of those cases.
What do you see in Richardson, the other Sarah receiver?
Yeah, I see a guy that really, you watch the Cal game, and he's so explosive. Kind of more like Robert, as far as if you give him space, he can just take off and go on, and then all of a sudden your angles disappear like that game. And I think that surprised a lot of people, that day versus a very good Cal defense for the numbers that were put up by those guys, and it shows the potential of their offense when he's healthy and when the running back's healthy too.
Is Jesse Scroggins back to the point where if there were an emergency or an end game mop-up situation where he'd be able to go in there?
Yeah, there are some scenarios where Jesse would go in, and so it's why we gave him more practice this week now that he's fully healthy, and look forward to his progression.
Do you anticipate that Mark's going to be able to play in this game, or is Curtis going to be the guy?
Curtis will start regardless, but I do hope that Mark plays. And as of right now, he's scheduled a long trip, and we'll continue to test him starting with tomorrow morning again.
What about Khalil?
I think he's fine. He went in and out yesterday, and then for the most part did all the practice today. He'll be fine.
Everyone was talking about Andrew Luck being the first pick in the draft. After that game, where Matt Barkley's going to go in the draft, but no one seemed to talk about Matt Khalil, who probably whenever he decides to come out is going to be a top guy. Just how good has he been this year, and how valuable has he been to this team?
Well, I think people do talk about him. I don't know. Saturday morning I see on the ticker where it rolls across, he's the #1 tackle in the country. So I think he did. I think a lot of people have him way up there. I think that's probably based off of his pass pro first. In that league, you better, as a tackle, you're not going to pay a guy money if he can't protect the passer. And so I think what we've become accustomed to, and kind of like what we mentioned with Robert, we take for granted, is how rare there's ever pressure on the backside of Matt. And then obviously that completely goes to credit to Matt. Khalil, and the fact that we rarely ever give him help. You know, we help on the other side, but we don't hardly ever help him. We leave him over there by himself, and so he's really done a great job.
After last week, such a big game, and this week not quite as big a game, any concern on looking past?
Well, not by me. I think this is a really big game. You know, coming back on a short week on ESPN, and we didn't win last week, regardless of how well the game went at times and stuff. You know, we got to get back on a winning track, and so I think this is a huge game.
What you guys just no pads, no shells today? What was the thinking in terms of? I mean, you're basically going to have one day of practice and pads. What was your kind of thought on that?
Well, it's 48 hours before really, as far as 2 days, and so we never go in pads 2 days before the game, and so we had to still get good speed work, which they did, and we got a lot of work done, but we just didn't want to hit them this close to the game, just because that's the normal format.
You talked about how good of a story it is with Curtis McNeil. What have you liked about his play on the field?
Well, I think his improvement. You want to see guys improve all the time, and he's really improved in the run game and in pass protection. And so early on in the year, our fear was the pass protection, just picking everything up and all the different rules, and he's really done a great job with that, being a smaller guy. And so I just like the fact that we're seeing him improve every week.
What is your biggest concern going into this game on Friday?
I just think there's potential of some new players playing on defense that aren't normal starters, and I think that really just going into a hostile environment and all the things with it, it's just an abnormal game. When you add weather tonight to a night game to a Friday game to a place none of these guys have been, so just really kind of the unknown there, and so it'll come back to just playing really well and playing really smart and not getting penalties and taking care of the football.